Hey everybody, welcome back to You Are Free TV. It is Friday, January 12th, 2024, and TGIF to everybody. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God I'm free, that we're free, that we continue to fight for freedom. And I want to say thank you so much to everybody supporting the channel. Thank you to M. And I just, I'm super appreciative to keep this channel going and to hopefully get more and more videos out with the support. And so I'll just let people know that another way to really support the channel is to share the videos and get the viewership up, because since the debanking, the deplatforming, it's hard to fight these algorithms. So I just want to put that out there. Please share the video. Okay, so I'll start with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence or hatred or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. And so we have so much news that I'm gonna wait till the end of the video to plug. I'm just gonna jump in, and still the number one thing for active motion from your social media standpoint is to go again against the NACs, the natural asset corporations. We still need you to get in and chime in on what's coming up. The 18th is the closing of arguments or comments to go in against the SEC, allowing the New York Stock Exchange to allow a new non-profitable exchange system on the stock exchange with natural asset companies. And this will be where they can put in management of all of the natural lands in the United States by globalists, by global hedge funds, BlackRock, etc., allowing sovereign nation funds from the CCP, from whatever nation you want to choose, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, to control our natural assets, our national parks, our public parks, basically everything that they deem as public land, but also with easements and control of private land that goes into that. You need to go to sovereigntycoalition.org, and you'll be able to go ahead and just put your emails and calls in to your representatives and senators. And you can go to americanstewards.us, read already the comments that have come in there, and then add yours. You can cut and paste. You can use all that material to increase the argument, increase the value, push back against this, because it's huge what's going on with the Economic Forum that I'm going to talk about as they meet up in Davos. This, starting on Monday, they're already there. They're already machinating and doing their evil deeds. And so there's so much that I'm going to get into. I'm going to get into actually starting with talking about what's going on in Utah with the natural asset companies, how they're fighting it, what's going on there. And we're going to get into so much. We're going to get into the death of Gonzo Lira, the journalist out of Ukraine, has died. And that's announced today. Very sad. We're going to get into that. May he rest in peace. We're going to absolutely honor him in this video. We're going to get into the World Economic Forum. We're going to talk about the 43,000 monkeys that they want to put in Texas for the next pandemic rollout, and so much. Rand Paul for VP, maybe this being set up. The war with Yemen, all of it. But let's just jump in first with what I think we should start getting into is, okay, so you have to do those actions, please, please, please. Oh, and don't forget, you have to call 202-225-3121 and tell your representative that you want to absolutely turf and vacate the chair of Mike Johnson. I call him Bible McCarthy at this point, because he's putting down the same plan, fund Ukraine, literally complete loser, okay, for freedom fighters in the House. And we have Marjorie Taylor Greene going in there saying that she met with Johnson yesterday, and that basically she said to him, if you put in a new CR, a new continuing resolution to try to keep this government going on spending to do with the war with Ukraine, etc., that she's going to vote for to vacate him from the chair. And I agree with that, and I applaud Marjorie Taylor Greene for not only that, but also the incredible thing that happened today, which was the House meeting on vaccine injury. And this is really important. I'll just cover this real quick before I get into the Utah news, because Utah has so much natural resources that are national parks. They're constantly trying to make them into national monuments using the Native Americans. This all has to do with relic preservation and all of this stuff. It's complete baloney. We're going to get into that. But as far as Marjorie Taylor Greene kicking it out of the park with this House meeting on the hearings on vaccine injury today, incredible. And I will link it below. You should watch it at least the first 45 minutes, because they really concisely did a great job really outlining the whole criminal enterprise that was the COVID pandemic and the capture of, the killing and the capture, right? The killing of humans, the capture of sovereignty. And, I want to basically just give big ups, because I think that MTG did a great job on really overseeing this and convening it, and really, great stateswomanship there. But I'm just going to run over this quick overview of what happened, and then go and watch and share it. Those first 45 minutes, you need to share it with your relatives, your friends, your families, your communities, because it really outlines exactly what went on for people who maybe don't know, are resistant to knowing. It's a great resource to use. So the first 45 minutes basically was an incredible summary of the harms, the vaccine harms, deaths, kill, the injury, what's going on with the microclotting, all of it, the heart disease, all of that, manufacturing of the emergency use shots, how dangerous it was, how it was unprecedented in there being no testing that was real, that it was illegal gain of function research. In the development of these bioweapons, they're calling vaccines, and bringing into it Fauci's testimony of the last couple days, capturing him to discuss how fraudulent he is. They bring in the WHO, the use of the pandemic treaty as a threat to sovereignty of all nations, using it as a worldwide coup, as a public health proxy to take over sovereignty of nations. Amazing, okay, situation there in the House today. So I'll link it below, and we thank MTG for getting this out there to get people knowing about the harms of the vaccines on a worldwide scale, on at least nationwide scale. And there is the new volume 2 of the Pfizer papers coming out from dailyclout.io. This is, of course, Naomi Wolf, who also put out recently a book called Facing the Beast, dealing with fighting Pfizer and all of the governmental organizations to get this information out. Pfizer papers, volume 2, coming out of Skyhorse Publications. That'll be released soon. You want to check that out and get that to your friends and family as well. So I want to jump in here, I think, because as we're going to go through this flow, we're going to get to Davos, meeting up. They're already there, but Monday is the official start. But I think there is important things to understand in the get to that. Just before I get there, I want to talk about Mike Lindell for a second, because Fox News has now ousted MyPillow from advertising on Fox News, brought to you by Pfizer, right? As you see, every Fox News, I don't watch it anymore, but I watch clips and I'll watch everything. Here and there, I have to aggregate the news. And so you see it's always constantly brought to you by Pfizer, brought to you by Moderna, brought to you by whoever is the, it all comes down to Pfizer, because they're buying up all of the cancer companies, all the big pharma doing cancer drugs is being bought up by Pfizer. I covered that recently. But so Mike Lindell and MyPillow got ousted from Fox News from advertising. They literally have given Fox News over $500 million in the last 10 years for their advertising as an American company, where everything is manufactured here, with a huge, really employee half owned. They have stakes in the company. And of course, Mike Lindell doing the heavy lifting for exposing the election steal. And so he gets canceled from Fox News, and they're trying to spin it as that because he is underwater in his finances because of all the suing going on against him. They used to give him 12 weeks credit. He was paying $1 million a week for advertising. It's crazy. Or $1 million, was it $1 million? Yeah, $1 million a week. That's $52 million a year. They cut it down to 8 weeks credit, and they're trying to say, oh, he can't pay his bills, that's why we canceled him, when we know that what they're doing on Fox News is full-on Nikki Haley. We want Nikki Haley. We want war. We want to support Lockheed Martin, Boeing. We want, Raytheon to rule the next election. And it's really interesting because you have Rand Paul coming out with the Never Nikki website and the Never Nikki statement, where there's maybe a little whisper here of Rand Paul being chosen as Trump's VP. Interesting because, I love Rand Paul. I'm not sure I would want him to be VP. I think he's really effective as a senator. And I also think that we have maybe more energized people. But I love Rand Paul for everything with his fiscal policy, his foreign policy, and his health freedom policies. So I do love that. He cites on his nevernikki.net website that he just put up, that a quote by Nikki Haley: "I'm sick of talking about the Department of Defense. I want a Department of Offense," right? And this is exactly neocon Nikki. This situation of, we want full-bore war, we want to generate more money for my family in order to, it's basically Dick Cheney 2.0 with Nikki Haley. And so, yeah, Rand Paul is VP, interesting buzz. We'll see what happens. But he has not endorsed Trump. He still says, I think other people are interesting. So he hasn't endorsed Trump. And so that's kind of squirrely because, why would you choose a VP that hasn't endorsed you, right? I'm still kind of on the Carrie Lake train. I think Vivek would be a great VP. I think there are interesting possibilities all around. And so, okay, let's move into what is the Utah situation. I want to talk about Philip Lyman. He is a state representative out of Utah who is running for governor of Utah to get rid of Spencer Cox. And Spencer Cox has been totally behind the NACs, the Natural Asset Corporation takeover of Utah. And Utah is 70% public lands. It's so completely, massively controlled by the federal government, right? You have all those national parks. They're gorgeous. They're beautiful. But then you've got the BLM lands, and you've got national monuments. They're continuously doing this. We saw with Obama, he went in and made some national monuments there, basically shutting down production of energy and mineral extraction on private lands. And Trump went in and shut it down immediately when he was president. Well, Spencer Cox, who describes his pronouns as he, him, and hers, he, him, and his, don't mean to say the hers, literally embracing Biden when Biden came to dedicate a new national monument that shuts down more uranium and lithium, huge swath of land, something like 3 million acres in Utah. And so I'm going to get into this here. So Phil Lyman, I'm going to link it below. Look into him, and if you're in Utah, absolutely support him, and anybody support him, because he's running for governor on this platform of anti-weaponization of the government, because he himself was attacked by the federal government because he was living in San Juan County at the time where BLM and the FBI came in and raided the entire county, shutting down. It was 80% privately owned land, and they went and shut down resources and production of what was mineral extraction, so lithium, uranium, gas, all of this to do. And it's very interesting because the same area was so much involved in what was Hillary's Uranium One deal, the big steal that she literally gave to Putin. That was just full on Uranium One, the $1 billion in the suitcase, all of it. Bill Clinton on the tarmac, all of it. Susan Rice, all of it. This comes out of this thing with San Juan County, and this is where this guy, Phil Lyman, is running for governor, having experienced this. Once he saw what happened with this raid in his country, in his county, to shut down mineral extraction, to shut down business, basically, because they're saying, hey, we have Indian artifacts, we have Native American artifacts on these lands, we're shutting you down because this is anti-Native American, as if they care. No, they don't care. They're using the Native Americans, just like they're doing in Australia, New Zealand, elsewhere, Alaska, to be able to control energy, who controls the energy. And this has everything to do with the NACs, because if they can create more and more monuments and national parks and lands, then they can use this new Natural Asset Corporation designation through the SEC, through the New York Stock Exchange, to get massive capital funding for any billionaires and sovereign trust economies across the world to control our United States sovereign assets. It's so sick, but it's real. And so I want to push that for Phil Lyman for governor, okay, 2024, there in Utah. I will link him below. And so what's really interesting here is, though, you get Lyman. He ran for county commissioner after this raid in the county, which was a very, an affluent county. There was 80% private property. Everybody involved in doing energy and mineral extraction, they came with the FBI, the feds, and BLM to raid them and shut them down. He actually spent 10 days in jail over this. And he says that who is a key player in this is the Carnegie Institute for International Peace. The Carnegies. He said it's the Carnegie Institution that has so much to do with what's going on with funding what is becoming the natural asset company takeover. And so, Biden went in there. It wasn't long ago. Remember when there was that man in Provo, Utah? I think they were claiming he was connected with J6, but they were saying basically he had made threats against President Biden. I think to do with what became a new monument that Biden went into Utah to go and bless this new monument. It's so great. We're stealing 3 million acres of prime uranium production land from Utah to say it's Indian artifacts for, posterity for nature. No, it's planned to be controlled by CCP and other foreign, mostly Middle Eastern, Qatar, UAE, Saudis, controlling our uranium. And so what happened right before Biden came there to bless this new, what they call, what the Republicans or the freedom fighters call the Beatnik Monument, basically, that right before that is when they went in with the FBI and shot like 17 times that guy in a wheelchair, a veteran, who had made on Facebook threats like, Biden should die or something like this, for entertainment purposes only. I have nothing to do with it. But so right after that was to shut down anybody protesting what was about to happen, which was Biden coming to Utah and putting this new monument into operation. And so you can follow Marlo Oaks. He's a treasurer of Utah. He's fighting the NACs. Do your part in going to those websites I talked, and there's a link below, to comment and to try to stop this. But basically, the problem, reaction, solution is, create a national or natural monument, a little homage to nature, and then steal the U.S. energy and mineral assets in it. Look at Uranium One, look at Hillary, look at Frank Giuffre, right? The big payout there to Clinton Global Initiatives. And the foreign powers come in and manage and steal them in a natural asset company. So that's what's going on. And Obama did the same thing back in his last days as president. And just to let people know that this guy, this great guy, Phil Lyman, who has lived through this in Utah, he is actually sponsoring a talk going on January 18th there at the University of Utah. He's bringing in Riley Gaines because Spencer Cox, the rhino, the complete fake Republican, vetoed the bill to protect women's sports from being invaded by men. And Riley Gaines is going to be there to talk about, this veto of that bill and to basically bring equality in women's sports back to Utah. So that's a great thing. I'll try to link it below if I can, but it's the University of Utah on January 18th. All right, so moving on from there, because that is huge, it leads into what is going on with the World Economic Forum. They don't specifically talk about the natural asset corporations there at the World Economic Forum this year that I can see. I've kind of glazed through all of their talks, what's going on. I'm going to get into that very shortly, but I wanted to talk about first Gonzola Lira. And this was an American journalist who just died in prison for entertainment purposes only, murdered in prison in Ukraine. He was born in Burbank, California. He is a journalist, a filmmaker, an incredible orator. He's just a great analyst, a political analyst. And he has been going through for the last few years, 2 years, major arrests and, by Ukraine, and very much, for entertainment purposes only, looks very much by the Biden White House has orchestrated this, and he is now dead in a Ukraine prison. And Gonzo Lira, whenever I listen to his videos, I'll link them below. I listened to them all in the beginning of the Ukraine war and got more and more, excited about his videos because they were so true. They were exposing all the false flags going on with the supposed attacks, exposing how it was the Ukrainians pulling off these false flags. And he was so right on. And he was a Chilean American. He had a dual citizen passport because of his father. And his father was on Tucker Carlson back a month ago, like December 9th or 10th of 2023, talking about his son being imprisoned. And there was the video that I'll link below of what was Gonzo Lira's last video that he put up before he was arrested at the border, where he was attempting to flee and go into Hungary to escape what would be his, of course, death sentence in a Ukrainian prison labor camp. Okay, so, and this gets into the World Economic Forum again, because this is what they're planning for everybody, is that the journalist who speaks out and exposes what's going on is number one on the World Economic Forum agenda this year. What is it, containing risk or whatever it is. I'll get to it in a second. But let's get into Gonzo Lira. So it's very sad. Rest in peace, Gonzo Lira. God bless you and keep you. You have the promise of eternal life, in Jesus' name. And we know that he's with God now, and he has done great work. 1968 to January 12th, 2024, 55 years old, an incredible person. And so his last words on his last video, which he said on so many of his videos, were, understand what's going on. And I'll get more into that. I just want to go through what's gone on here. So he was in Kharkiv, Ukraine, getting close to the fighting there, where he was living. He married a Ukrainian woman, And he was just very steadfast in exposing in very common sense language what we all know and talk about on this channel constantly, the coup in Ukraine, the fact that Russia didn't instigate the war, all of it, and exposing the false flags that were going on and the lies in the Ukrainian media. And so he was arrested for that, and he was bailed out. He was in jail for 10 days, and I believe, was beaten. He said he was tortured by the prisoners alongside him in prison, that they were used by the powers that be to harm him and extort tons of money out of him, and so that he could be released. And then he was going to have a court date on August 1st of 2023 that would, basically find him guilty immediately and put him into an 8-year sentence in a prison labor camp. And he had called out the missing journalists and activists that have gone missing by Zelensky. Zelensky, who now is being completely, totally denied by the own people in his government are going against Zelensky. And I think this is important. I'm just going to interject it. The Voice of Ukraine party today just said that they are vetoing Zelensky's plan to draft 500,000 Ukrainians that have fled the country, that he wants to use Interpol and NATO's full resources to go after all the Ukrainians that have fled the war, 500,000 of them plus, to be extracted, brought back, and thrown in as fodder to be slaughtered in the war in Ukraine. And that is, of course, not just a situation of we want to have fighters and soldiers in the war. No. It's to implement this is an international globalist thing where if you flee your country who's in a war, we can come after you using globalist forces to extract you back. It's a bigger situation, not just about Ukraine. It's about putting in a new mechanism whereby you'll be hunted down and returned. But the Voice of Ukraine party, somehow still existing in that tyrannical regime of Zelensky, vetoed it and said no, and it's not happening. So that's interesting. But so going on with Gonzo, so he put out a list of people and activists, journalists who disappeared out of Ukraine during this. It's like the 100 journalists dead in Gaza, right? But this is a list, and he said, if you don't hear from me, add my name to the list. So I'm going to add his name: Gonzola Lira, okay, Vladimir Struk, Denis Kiryev, Mikhail and Alexander Kanonovich, Nestor Shufrich, Jan Taksur, Dmitry Jangarov, Elena Berezhina, and there's many more of the missing in Ukraine, the people who have had the courage to act out. And so we know that he was tortured in prison, and we know that the U.S. Embassy did nothing for him. This, in my view, for entertainment purposes only, was, very connected to the Biden regime, his attacks on Victoria Nuland, his, not attacks, just truthful reports on the coup and the subsequent events that happened after it. No response from the State Department, no response from the embassy. This literally, a U.S. citizen was allowed to be tortured and killed in prison. That is Gonzo Lira. I will link below his videos, his last video that he did when he was trying to cross the border at Hungary, as well as a Tucker Carlson video that he did with his father a month ago, plus there's videos in there of some of his very common sense talking about what's going on in Ukraine. So I might leave that there. You know, we don't want nobody wants to get Ukrained, right? It's like, what's the new thing? Do you get O'Biden, like you're Arkansided with the Clintons? Like, is the body count going to be higher? Like with you get O'Biden now, you get Ukrained, you get WEFed, right? You get WEFed. It's like a different term for whacked. Now you're WEFed. And so this is what he had to say in his last video. He said, "You just have to keep moving forward. Please raise a ruckus if you don't hear from me again." And this was, I believe, July 31st of 2023, right before they got him at the border, where he was then in jail and now is dead in the Ukraine. And this is being done with our taxpayer dollar money, by the way. So you just have to keep moving forward. Please raise a ruckus if you don't hear from me. Please don't be indifferent to my fate. I ask you very humbly, recognize that I face a literal death that awaits me if this doesn't work out. And then he said what he usually said, understand what's going on. So, rest in peace, Gonzola Lira. Prayers to you, and you, of course, to promise of eternal life in Jesus' name. And so we fight on. We have the Taiwan elections that are happening right now as I speak. They're probably launching as this video is going up. Huge when we hear the CCP and the predominant CCP-controlled party in Taiwan saying this is a choice between war and peace. You know, if you don't elect the stooges that are put in by China, then you're going to have war with China. And so we pray for those elections. We have, of course, the caucuses starting on Monday. They're in Iowa where they're under frigid conditions. This gets into the World Economic Forum as well, because they basically have said outright that they're going to create massive weather events. And I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, life-threatening weather conditions in Iowa, you know, getting down to the zeros in degrees. Everybody has to get out their Arctic gear. Carrie Lake's fully fighting the fight there, getting on board for what's going on in the caucuses coming up. And so we're going to watch that on Monday. I'll be with you on that. And so let's get into Davos. Davos this year, of course, their big theme is rebuilding trust. Right. And that's a complete baloney because, of course, Europe and you know, Ursula von der Leyen is doing a keynote address there, or a special interest address. They have a zero trust policy, right? It's the same with Australia, New Zealand, mostly all the Dominion countries. Canada and really the United States is they're priming the pump to get the United States on board to convince the American people, Nikki Haley style, everybody must be identified and be absolutely surveilled in their online activity. Well, Davos this year, their theme is rebuilding trust when we know they have a zero trust policy already in place. And so they're saying this is transparency, consistency, and accountability. This is starting on Monday. They're already doing it right now this weekend. And so if you translate transparency, consistency, and accountability, it goes into meaning really surveil you constantly and then prosecute you, and Gonzo Lira style, right? It's already happening across Europe. And so what do they say at this Davos meeting that's starting on Monday? Oh, there's going to be 100 governments there. Yay! They're going to be all major international organizations will be attending. And there'll be 1,000 World Economic Forum partners that will be there. Oh, and that's not all, folks. Don't worry. It's all brought to you by Pfizer. There will be massive amounts of civil society leaders. That gets into kind of your smaller governments, your Soros-funded, global mayors organization, your secretaries of state, all these traders that keep completely selling out the sovereignty of this country and every country across the world, your civil society leaders belonging to the World Economic Forum. You get your experts. There's going to be a ton of experts there. Oh, experts. Don't worry, there'll be a lot of youth leaders there too, because that's what we need for the future. And then, of course, your social entrepreneurs, not your entrepreneurs, your social entrepreneurs, meaning the people who are going to be the ESG grifters of the future to do with the NACs. And I'll get into what they see as the major threats, okay, what must be worked on in a minute. But the social entrepreneurs gets into how do we create a new workforce that is controlled by NACs, natural asset corporations, that your only opportunities is to go in and be part of managing, surveilling, part of the smart sensor system, all of it, of all of the natural lands that they are stealing out from sovereign nations. And that will be the thing. If you look at all the futuristic books that have come out recently, it's all about that your only opportunities for jobs is that, you get your longevity, you get your augmentation with your transhumanism stuff, but your job basically is you work for a centralized state going and surveilling natural resources, right? You go, why isn't that sensor not working? Jet me over there in my little, put me in that place and I'm going to see what's going on with these sensors. And then everybody else is just working online, or they're literally earning tokens in the metaverse to supply energy to a crypto AI machine, right, for your social credit score system. And so let's go on. So Davos 2024, we've got, don't worry, there's going to be also all the news outlets. They make a clear distinction. There will definitely be tons of news outlets there, but don't worry, there won't be people like Gonzola Lira attending as an independent journalist because he's dead, right? And so what is happening? Well, they've got their awards show, they've got their awards. They do the Crystal Awards there at the World Economic Forum every year. That's Hildy Schwab, the wife of Klaus. She has to have, her gown and her Oscar moment. And so they do these Crystal Awards, the 30th annual, right? It's now, I think that we've had like 54 years of World Economic Forum, the whole lifespan of Gonzola Lira, right? He was 55 when he died, almost 56. And that was his entire life. The World Economic Forum has been planning the demise of all sovereign nations and a one world global government. And so here we are at the Crystal Awards. You should call them like the Babylon Globes, right? If you saw that atrocity that was the Golden Globes last weekend, I suffered through some of it just to see what the heck they were going to do, and it was garbage. But the Crystal Awards always go to who's the best globalist in the arts or film or whatever. And we get people like Dibedo Francis Kere out of Burkina Faso winning the awards. Okay, they always choose 3. And, it's the Kere Foundation. He out of Burkina Faso in his village of Gondo, in the region of Gondo, he has been able to create a sustainable economy, bringing people up from poverty and creating architecture that is sustainable and all of that. And that's all well and good. But, it'd be great if it was free and sovereign, but it's not. It's all funded by these same globalists. Okay, he's number 1. And then you get Michelle Yeoh, the Chinese actress. She was the one in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Crazy Rich Asians, a bunch of movies. But basically, she's, her big claim is that she was, broke the ceiling in creating new roles for Asian women in films. But she became a UN Goodwill Ambassador in 2016 and basically doing tons of mobilization for capitalizing for the SDGs, the SRGs, all of it for sustainability and this thing called hashtag Streets for Life. Streets for Life. and highlighting what is apparently the global road safety crisis. Now, I would say we have that in the United States. Our infrastructure is crap. What did we hear when Biden got in? Oh, we're going to build roads. We're going to build infrastructure. That's the whole thing. No. The whole infrastructure was how to dismantle our current roads, our current system, so that they can bring in what I talked about in the last videos, a month ago about they're going to, make EVs be powered underneath the freeways with these electromagnetic systems that are super harmful, super detrimental to your health. No, that's what they really meant. They're waiting it out now, 3 years in. Nothing built, nothing going on. It's all money going into these grifters. And so Michelle Yu, part of the global road safety crisis, problem. And of course, this is basically just China being with its Belt and Roads Initiative, eking its way into these crystal awards. And then the last one was Nile Rodgers. And I thought this was really interesting that Nile Rodgers gets this. He was a Black Panther out of New York City as a teen, right? And he got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, massive Grammy Award winner. He did Rapper's Delight and La Freak back, what was it, the early 80s? I remember it. It's like Rapper's Delight. What is it? I don't want to get into it. I could. But it's like, I remember roller skating to it as a kid, the beat to the boogie to the boom bang booty to the bump bump bump. Anyway, so he gets in now. He's big in with UNESCO and New York City. He's been huge with Live Aid, Bono's massive grifting scam, where with Live Aid, I think Bono gave like 1% of all that money to a massive Live Aid, huge concerts, hundreds of millions of dollars. 1%, okay, through Bono for entertainment purposes only, went to charity. Part of Live Aid, Nile Rodgers, the We Are the World, steal, and then the Concert for Ukraine situation. He was a co-founder of the We Are Family Foundation. He was part of producing the We Are Family song, I'm Coming Out song, all of this stuff. And this guy, because he's just so great on all the human rights for all of the gender pronouns, that they put him in as the third winner of the Crystal Global Babylon Globes. And so, let's just get into a few more things. It's kind of moving on here in time. On Monday, I will be watching the Davos horror show, and we'll get back to you on what's happening in real time. But let's just look at a quick, overview. I want to get into basically what are their major tenets of what they see as the 10 major threats that they need to counteract there at good old Davos. But first, on day one, we're going to get Ursula von der Leyen. She'll be there. She's, of course, doing a special address as the president of the European Commission. Of course, who was the former president? We have Donald Tusk, right, who's now trying to push Poland into war, having massive protests in Warsaw, as I talked about in my last video, protesting the arrest of the members of parliament who went for sanctuary with President Duda and were extracted from the presidential palace. Yeah, Ursula von der Leyen, she's a real charmer. She was also in the leadership of the European Internationale, huge fascist communist organization in Europe. Her family, of course, goes back to the slavers in South Carolina and Georgia, largest slaving family. And then her other side, her father's side, goes into, of course, he was a Nazi. And she had to flee as a child to England because of the imminent arrests of parts of her family. And so anyway, von der Leyen, out of Germany, she's now the European Commissioner. So yay, we get to hear from her. Zelensky will be there, right? After failing within his own government as they veto his ability to try to extract 500,000 Ukrainians who have fled the country. he'll be giving a special address, and he'll be saying, give me your money and give me your soldiers, and NATO, please, let's do this thing, right? Sweden is now saying, we have the civil defense minister of Sweden coming out kind of off the cuff, and they're trying to shut him up, that there is imminent threat that if Sweden, if this NATO-Sweden thing happens, that they could go to war. And that was a big no-no to say out of Sweden, right? But they're sending their troops in Sweden to Latvia to go and do training, right? Training. And this is when we start to get into our FFs. The U.S. is talking about, they've already seized the assets of Russia, but they're saying now we're going to liquidate those assets and send that money to Ukraine, right? That's war talk. Not only do we take your money and hold it, right? It's one thing to hold it. It's another thing to translate it into funding to give to your enemy as funding for massive amounts of hundreds of millions of dollars for war and the billions for war against you. That's a whole nother thing. We're on the teetering edge here, folks, of a declared world war. We're already in it, in what they call the interstate conflicts, which the World Economic Forum actually brings up. So then day 3, we get John Kerry, of course, the walking corpse skeletor that is John Kerry out of the Skull and Bone Society that was dedicated to the education of children, right, out of the Berlin School, and all the mind control, trauma-based mind control. If you leave the Skull and Bones, the penalty is death, okay? Once you become a bonesman, you are always a bonesman, or else you are slated to die. And, we look at George W. Bush, George H.W. You remember George H.W. with Trump? He's in his wheelchair, and he's almost dead, but he's still saying, we're going to kill you, Trump, right? This is who we're dealing with. So John Kerry and his whole creepy life, he's going to be there day 3 to talk about what is decarbonizing emerging markets, okay? That means the NACs, the natural asset companies. Go to sovereigntycoalition.org, go to americanstewards.us, make your voice known to stop the SEC allowing there to be a natural asset corporation designation on the New York Stock Exchange immediately. And basically he's raising capital for this. They talk about it throughout the World Economic Forum, that they're raising capital. We need capital. We need your money, okay, for this hedge fund control of what will be the natural asset companies. And that he's going to be talking a lot about decarbonizing emerging markets. And we see him arriving there in his private jet, emitting more carbon as if it's bad, than any household would ever do in 5 years. And that, this whole new thing with ethanol, as I've been talking about, the carbon capture, what's going on with the natural asset corporations, is, of course, this thing trying to create green jet fuel out of ethanol. Good luck with that. They can't even screw the doors into the planes right? Like, how many planes have been, we have to emergency land. Alaska Airlines, I think there was another one yesterday. Was it American? Or I think it was United. Another thing where apparently they don't know how to screw those emergency release doors in properly, because this keeps happening. And that's what happens when you try to hire people that don't know what the heck they're doing. And so I'm going to go here to the 10 threats. I also listened to the media release, I'll link it below, of the managing director of the World Economic Forum. That was Sadia Zahidi. And all of the managing directors, it was so awful to watch, just them talking about how basically all of us humans are such a problem. We create so many problems. We don't want to do what they're telling us to do, but they really, really need public-private partnerships to shut down all this sovereignty, all this freedom. It is really globally so central that they stop us. And really what they need to stop immediately and foremost is our free speech. That is number one in their what they're trying to do with the World Economic Forum this year. And so I want to tell everybody, I'm going to jump into the 10 threats that the World Economic Forum is saying are the number one threats going forward right now. But I do want to just mention a couple things. You know, when we talk about the NACs, the natural asset corporations, I want you to check out at Dave Walsh Energy on, you know, any platform. He does such a great job talking about, you know, what's going on behind the scenes with all the climate garbage. And he's exposed Kristi Noem in South Dakota, who is a big supporter of Trump, right, because of ethanol, because she's totally supporting carbon capture pipelines in the state of South Dakota. And it's really important to see when we see Vivek Ramaswamy and Steve King, as I talked about in my last couple videos ago, saying I have to support Ramaswamy because he's literally coming out against carbon capture pipelines, against, I think it's Rostetter, I have to get back to him, or Rosteffer, the guy who owns Carbon Summit Solutions. And so what Dave Walsh Energy has to say is that this is going to be our natural resources managed by globalist hedge funds to block any development of energy and mineral and water resources, includes fishing, hunting, okay, like our activities. I've even read where the plan that's written out by, you know, the white papers, where when the time comes, they're going to kill the herds, the wild herds, to even stop us from getting that food. But they won't even have to, because we won't be allowed to get on those lands to do the hunting anyway, or the fishing. Okay? And so what Walsh had to say is that deed restrictions will be put in place to block the new Trump administration from having access to these resources. So the deed restrictions will have to be fought in court. If this goes through the SEC, if this goes through with the natural asset corporations, these deed restrictions are going to be a giant legal shit show that Trump is going to have to fight to, you know, when Obama created that huge, massive national monument in Utah before to steal all the uranium out of Utah before, which they've already done now again with Biden just being there and the killing of that veteran in a wheelchair with 17 shots. You know, Trump was able to say, hey, that's revoked, it's over, right? Now, this whole new designation of a new corporate status would bring a whole ramification of massive legal issues that Trump would have to deal with. What Walsh had to say was that we're dealing with something called NextEra, which I'll get into in my next video, NextEra, and then Summit Carbon Solutions. This is that Rostetter from Iowa with the Summit Ethanol Corporation. This is a massive billionaire out of the Midwest, the Soros of the Midwest, they call him, with this Summit Carbon Solutions. Again, it's international. I've talked about Brazil, Lula, the 4 billion bushels of corn, all of it. Okay, and the donors to Kristi Noem are huge in this. And so I wanted to say that. I want you to check out Marlo Oaks, the treasurer out of Utah. I've linked him a couple videos ago. But he's setting up a coalition of treasurers of states, and that's really important. And so before I go into the 10 threats here, I just I want to say there's you know, we need prayer waves hugely, massively, right? We need prayers big time. And there is a cool massive prayer wave going on with 100,000 plus people that's happening every day. And you can get that through texting, okay, pray, P-R-A-Y, to 20221, and be part of a massive prayer wave, okay? Every day, massive prayer wave. And this group is planning a huge pray-in on the National Mall about 10 days before the 2024 election, where they're going to pray in person on the National Mall. And so again, that's text pray, P-R-A-Y, to 20221. All right, so back to these 10 points. I'm kind of getting done here. I'm getting a little cooked at 54 minutes, but I did want to talk about these 10 points that seem to be developed mostly by the RAND Corporation, but it literally is what Davos is saying is their 10 biggest threats and outlining in their huge document of what their 2024 meetup is about. And so these are the 10 threats. The number one, okay, is, dismiss or malinformation, right? Building trust, rebuilding trust, build back better trust, build trust back better, build trust Babylon back better, right? Build Babylonian trust, right? This is what they're saying. We're going to surveil you, we're going to shut you down, and then we're going to incarcerate you. That's literally what they're saying. Their number one, okay, biggest threat, they say, in the world is dismiss and malinformation. That's the number one threat to the global order. So keep doing what you're doing because it's working, right? The spreading of the truth, the sharing of the videos, the getting the truth out is what's so important. And so their second one, and this one is very important, what they're calling extreme weather events. Number two is extreme weather events. Well, we're seeing one there in Iowa, okay, with the blizzard conditions and the zero temperatures right at the caucus time. That's an extreme weather event. And, we had one of these with Lahaina, okay, extreme weather events. We have these fires, we've all these directed energy weapons and electromagnetic spectrum with ionization of the skies, with the geoengineering and the direction of the sky rivers to create whatever they want with weather events. And so they're saying that their number two, meaning that's what they plan to do, is create some extreme weather events, burning down, for entertainment purposes only, burning down more communities, hurricanes, earthquakes, whatever they need to do, wherever they want to take the land, take the property, shut down a political event, stop a social movement. They will create these extreme weather events for entertainment purposes only. Their number three concern is social polarization, right? Social polarization, meaning they must get the groupthink back, sorted out. They need to socially engineer how everybody can become globalist. Good luck with that. Fourth, way down on 4 is cybersecurity. I thought that was number 1. Nope. Cybersecurity is number 4. Okay, that gets down to will they shut down the internet? Will they shut down, the entire the grid system, cyber security, or just steal everything with everyone's data, all of it, the hacking, the banks. It's this person, Russia hacked the banks, and now the banks are non-operational. You can't get your money. That's not speculation. That literally is a wargaming focus. And so I'm going to just run through the rest because I kind of have to end it up here at an hour. But we get their next number 5 is armed interstate conflict. And this has to do with how nations don't declare war but are constantly warring, kind of like the U.S. with Yemen. We're at war with Yemen today, but there was no mention of it by Congress. I heard no declaration by Joe Biden after he comes off of his Caribbean, rejuvenation through who knows what means out there on Water Island, out there in Caribbean next to Nygaard's Island. We hear nothing about this, but it kind of implies, civil war threats, the manufacturing of events to do with armed conflict. And then, of course, there is lack of opportunity, creating poverty, and of course this gets into what they want to do with the new digital workforce and what I was describing before. Number 7, way down at 7, is inflation. Your inability to buy food or pay for your rent or your energy is way down on the list. That's inflation. 8 is forced migration. Forced migration. Who's forcing it? Well, they claim, climate. It's the humans causing the climate change, the forced migration. Number 9, economic depression. Number 9. I think economic depression it should be number 1, right? No, it's number 9. And guess what's last, which is so funny with their climate agenda? Number 10 is pollution, is the last thing on the list, pollution. And good old-fashioned pollution, right, is always what a reasonable person wants when they think of environmentalism. A reasonable person wants clean air, clean water. Stop the geoengineering, please. Stop poisoning the water with fluoride and all your garbage. Stop injecting every living thing with mRNA. Let's stop the pollution, right? But no, that's number 10. So on January 17th, they have a panel for Disease X, right? Disease X. And that's a special time on the 17th on Wednesday where they have to talk about novel, love that word. They always come up with novel efforts on how to thwart the next Disease X pandemic, which could come out of this monkey scenario out of Texas, but I've run out of time. It's an hour. I'll talk about it in my next video. This monkey, 43,000 monkeys into the state of Texas on this massive farm right near that whole Colonia Ridge out of Houston, creepy whole scenario. We had Abbott sending the National Guard to the border down there in Eagle Ridge, Eagle Pass, right? And setting up in the park, closing out the Border Patrol. All of that, really a lot of games and a lot of media hype for who seems to be the captured Greg Abbott. Not a real stop. Just maybe clearing it out for that, multi-million-dollar fair that they have that's planned there in a couple months or next month. But anyway, folks, I'm going to stop there. We're over an hour. I hope you found this useful. We have so much going on. Again, prayers for the continued eternal reality of Gonzo Lira. Thank you so much, Gonzo, for all of your great work that you did in this life. And prayers to you in Jesus' name. So I'm going to leave it there, folks. If you found something useful or added value in this video, I'll be covering more massively on Davos next week, the caucuses, all of it. But if you did find extra value in this video and you want to support the channel and I can keep doing more videos more frequently, there's ways to do so below. Thank you so much. And I also want, of course, mention here at the end, as I said I would, c60evo.com, c60evo.com/YAFTV for 10% off. Use the code YAFTV. And of course, ESS60, the C60 molecule of C60 Evo gets into your cells, which cellular health is health. It cleans out the garbage so that you can create more ATP, to have more energy, to fight more disease, to do your life, to defeat the brain fog, to defend yourself against the inflammation, all of it. Incredible product. c60evo.com/YAFTV. I give away 2 bottles of the capsules every month. I love the capsules because they just have that combination of the liquid fat there and the organic olive oil with the C60 in a gel cap, and it just digests really nicely, nice combi. And you get entered into the giveaway of 2 bottles of this given away every month from You Are Free TV. And people who donate to the channel get 15% off and another code and another link sent to them. So thanks so much for watching, folks. It's been a long one today. TGIF, get some downtime over the weekend because next week is going to be just massive, okay? And we need everybody in Iowa at those caucuses on Monday morning, and we're going to pray for, warmth. Get those warming pads to put in your shoes and your mittens. Get out there in your Arctic gear. We need you in Iowa on Monday. So you are free, and I will see you on Monday. And until then, prayer wave, right? Prayer wave. You can text pray, PRAY, to, if you want to be part of a big prayer movement, to 20221. And in the meantime, you don't need to do any of that. You can just pray, right? Because we're on the infinite. We don't need to be on the internet. We're on the infinite, right? We're God's channel. We're constantly hearing God, being God. God is within us, and we are all participating in this energetic connection, attempting to be hijacked by transhumanist cartel Babylon, WEF, DAVOS, but they can't access us, and that's what they're trying to do so hard. But we are fighting them because we are free. We are giant slayers. We are the Goliaths here, defeating the New World Order. So I'll see you next time. You are free. Stay free.